Hello again, everyone. So yeah, a bit of a follow-up post actually, because there was some stuff that I missed out a little bit. Mainly this time it's around cooling. So these engines tend to run quite hot. This is something that I found specifically at Brands Hatch, to be honest, when it was about 25 degrees, sunny all day, hot track temperatures. It basically, yeah, it kept running quite warm. Less of an issue at Snetterton where the ambient temperature is less, but it's nevertheless something that over this period of the colder months, the times to modify, that I wanted to definitely address. So there's a few things and a few ways we wanted to attack this. And so let's just go through them really. First and foremost, the radiator. Now, the radiators on these, they're not massively big, but the main issue is that they share components and they heat exchange with a lot of things. So it's not, they're not there just to cool the engine, they're there to cool other things as well. So two reasons. Firstly, you've got the oil coolers, or the oil cooler rather, of which we have one standard one, which is conveniently down here in the wheel well. And you can also add a second one through these funky little ports here, which I did, but that didn't really help too much. So there was obviously something else going on that's, you know, sapping the cooling ability. So what I wanted to do was address all of it at the same time. So I contacted my friends at Direnza, and they have supplied me with this. A nice alloy radiator, which is a little bit thicker, a little bit more capacity, so all around win-win. Fits nice. It's an OEM style fitment, however I'll get onto that in a minute. So hopefully that will give us a little bit extra. Now this one is actually from a manual car. I'm just trying to remember which side it is. Yeah, so it's from a manual car. Now my car is actually an auto. The 6-speed auto, and so what it has in addition is it's got a heat exchanger between the transmission and the radiator, and that obviously is one of the main, well, it's yeah, another drain on the cooling system. So what I wanted to do was take the radiator from the manual, which meant I could then remove some pipe work from the front of the car, which did obviously the heat exchanging, so you delete the heat exchanger in effect, and then I'd run a secondary cooler directly onto the transmission. So you can see down here I've kind of chopped these pipes, put some fittings on there ready to go, and then I've got this, which I will mount somewhere, somewhere in this wheel well to deal with that. So that's one problem, hopefully sorted. I did already run a secondary oil cooler, but as I say, it didn't really make too much difference in isolation of itself. And I think one of the main reasons for that is that the thermostat on these engines runs, well, it doesn't crack until it's massively hot, in my experience anyway. They only open at 110 degrees centigrade, which normally, when you buy aftermarket thermostats and whatnot for oil coolers, they tend to open about 85, so 85, 90. Now there are a couple of kits on the market for these engines where you can take the thermostat out, which is just in there, I think, yeah, in there, and replace it with obviously a lesser spring so it opens sooner, or alternatively, because this is only a track car, you could potentially remove it altogether, and just run a sort of a blanking plate straight off to a cooler anyway. I mean, the reason I want to address a lot of this is just in case I ever want to do any sort of door-to-door racing, which obviously means you need to run the car for longer, harder, and you don't want it to hit limp mode, which these cars are quite famous for when they get hot. So addressing all of the cooling elements is something that I was quite keen to do. Lastly, And again, I said I was come back to the radiator issue. This radiator is actually a few inches taller than the OEM one. So what that's meant was that I already had an aftermarket intercooler. And unfortunately, that meant that that no longer fitted with this. So that had to go. But what I have done is got a replacement intercooler. Again, I went to our friends at Direnza, and they've supplied me with this. This is one of their MVT intercoolers, which is multi-vane technology. And what that means is that inside the ports here, there's some air guides directing the air up, as well as, you know, straight through. So in a conventional intercooler, what would normally happen is the air would go in, path of least resistance, it just goes straight down here, and much of this isn't used that much. So that kind of guides it a little bit to help dissipate as much heat as possible and, well, get as much power as possible, let's be honest. So all of this combined together is hopefully going to mean that I can run the car harder, hopefully with a bit more boost, a bit more power, but we shall see. Keeps everything nice and compact as well, and yeah, good to go, hopefully. So I'm looking forward to I need to get some pipe work made up, but that's currently being made at the moment, because obviously we've got to get now from a different place around, but that's seemingly no problem. I've cut all that, measured it, and it's away being welded and made at the moment. Yes, I think that's kind of it cooling wise, but it was definitely something that I really wanted to get sorted, because it's nice to be able to just go out and, you know, beat it until the session's over and not have to worry about those sorts of things. So that's something that was always a problem for me in the Civic, which basically culminated in me breaking it up. So it's something that I wanted to avoid and get right early on. So hopefully I can build this into an even better prospect, fingers crossed. Anyway, that's the thinking. Hope it makes sense to you. Let me know.